Okay, wonderful. So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I wanted to, first of all, start by saying that everybody is going through their own journey right now and whatever they're going through. So, whether it is personally, globally, any sort of situations you have going on in your life right now. So, take this information as it applies to you specifically. Okay. So, how we're going to do the call is basically I'm going to do a brief meditation as per usual to get us in the right energy. And then I have a little bit of a channeled message for you. I've been sort of meditating on this the last few days, and there's definitely some things that the guides want us to know. And then from there, we'll sort of open it up. So if you have questions, if you have specific things you want to ask about, feel free to ask. And we can go from there. Sound good? All right, great. So I just want to verify. So when I'm speaking, do all of you see my screen? Just nod or say yes. Okay, cool.
Yes.
I want to make sure that I am seeing the view that I need to see for the recording. Hold on. So yeah, speaker view. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, so let's get nice and comfy and make sure your feet are firmly planted on the floor, or if you are seated with your feet crossed, then just make sure you're grounding from your root chakra. So I want you to start off with 3 deep breaths. So inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. So inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. So I'm going to create a beautiful container for this conversation. I'm going to imagine a cord of light going from the tops of each one of your heads, 6 feet above your head or 2 meters. And allow that cord of light to just sort of dive all the way down through the top of your head and all the way down through to your feet. And allow that cord of light to dive all the way down into the center of the earth, keeping us nice and grounded. And I'm going to open this container for this particular discussion. I'm going to ask for Archangel Michael to put a bubble of protection around all of us, keeping out any lower negative energies, any interference. Remove any and all psychic debris, any energies that don't belong to you, any feelings, any words, anything you've ingested over the last, let's say, month or so in terms of content that was fearful. We're just going to imagine that being crumpled up in front of you and being transmuted into light. Imagine that you are in this beautiful container with all of us, this beautiful divine light protection. And each one of you has your own individual bubble of protection as well. And you can imagine that for yourself as a light coming from the center of your chest and expanding outward until it envelops your entire body. I want you to acknowledge whatever feelings might be coming up for you right now. And I want you to acknowledge these feelings in particular because this is the space that you're in your own energy. We're clearing any energies that don't belong to you. So I want you to be able to connect clearly to what is really yours. What are the things that you're concerned about? What are the fears that you have? What are the things that you feel are blocking you at this time? And just acknowledge them. You don't have to do anything with them at this time. Just acknowledge what they are. And I want you to imagine that you're placing them, all of those fears, worries, any of those things, any of the blockages that you feel you have right now. I want you to imagine them like a ball in front of you. You can just kind of place it to your side, let it sit next to you for the time being. So we can go into this conversation with an open heart, open space, open for healing. Okay, beautiful. All right, so the first thing that I would like to talk about in terms of the general feelings of fear surrounding what is happening globally. I've heard things from, the wars going on, things happening with the elections, things happening in Europe. There are lots of things happening here that are basically creating fear in a lot of people. A lot of the natural disasters, things like that. And the message that I was getting a couple of days ago while I was in meditation was that you have to look at Earth herself as a being going through her ascension. And if you look at Earth herself as a being, and she has to go through all of the things that we go through on our ascension process, which is essentially going through your shadow, integrating your shadow, showing your shadow to yourself, if you will. So, how many times have we all been on this journey where we have been shown our greatest fears? We've been shown the things that we don't want to look at. And so, when we do finally look at those things, that's what usually results in our dark nights of the soul, those types of things, right? And I know that many of you have been through not only one, but possibly many dark nights of the soul, as have I. And so when you go through this, you know that you need to have all of those things come to the surface in order to be integrated and cleared. Only then can the change happen within you. Now, many of you may have experienced this on various different levels. So I have experienced this where I've come out of a dark night of the soul and I have felt exhausted, depleted, and didn't feel good at all. And I've also come out of some dark nights of the soul where I have felt elevated and lighter and better and much more aligned. So it just depends on what you happen to be working on, what you're doing, and what you're connecting to. So when you think of Earth in terms of like Earth as a planet, as a being, she is going through a lot of these shifts and changes. And because of this, it is creating these shifts and changes in all of us as well. We're having an effect on her, she's having an effect on us. And so that is the main point that I want you to keep in mind as we go through this conversation. Because when it comes to being in a place of fear, we have to look at it as, okay, this is something that I have to take a look at. This is something that needs to be seen. This is also something that needs to be looked at head on. Because I don't know about you, but whenever I avoid my fears, they get bigger and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And likewise, if you feed into those fears, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So, what do? You approach the fears and identify them as what is the basic reason for the fear? Is it protection? Is it that you need to basically go through something because you have experienced something in the past and you've seen how that's gone and you're like, nope, I don't want to go through that again? And so you're fearful of going through something in particular because you've been through it already. Then there's the big old fear of the unknown. And a lot of that is what is happening with the collective right now, because what we are seeing, especially on the world stage, we're seeing a lot of fear. We're seeing a lot of distorted energies. But what's interesting about this is that the distorted energies that are out there right now, they've always been here. It's not like this is just all of a sudden new. This has been here for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And we all know that going into this next age, the age of the divine feminine, the age of the feminine, what does that mean? That does not necessarily mean that women are going to rule the world. What it means is that the divine feminine in all of us, all genders, is going to be rising within all of us. And so what that means is that there's going to be more balance than there has been ever on this planet. Because for so long, it has been one way or the other, the duality. It's always been either power or the powerless. It has been the people who have money or the people who don't. There hasn't been a balance in all of that. And that is what is being created and that is what is being birthed right now. With the birthing of anything, there are always birthing pains. There are always growing pains. There are always things that will test you, that will send you into a place where you didn't think that you would go. And when you go to that place, let's say it's fear, let's say it's anger, let's say it's even hatred. Hatred for somebody that you don't even know, hatred for people that you don't know, but you just know that they don't stand for something that you stand for. If you are in love, that is the only thing that matters. So if somebody else is in hatred, okay, they're going to be in hatred. Allow that to happen because there's nothing you can do to change that hatred from that person. But what you can do is you can show up in love. And how can you show up in love? This goes with small things and big things, where if you're with, let's say, a person who's super toxic, and to you, they're toxic, to you, they're treating you not the way that you would want to be treated, are you going to go and just continue to love them and try to get them to change their ways? No. You can love them from afar. You can send them love from afar. You can send them love in the 5D, but you remove yourself from the situation. That is okay. You need to do what you need to do in order to make sure that your energy is
Yeah.
protected and safe. So once you feel that your energy is protected, that your energy is safe, then it is about turning your attention towards that which is love. If you are turning towards your fear, that's okay. You can acknowledge your fear, work through the fear, find out why the fear is there. If it is fear of another person, place, situation, whatever it is, if it hasn't happened, if it isn't touching your life at this moment, do not worry about it for the time being. Focus on finding your balance and the balance within yourself and within your heart and in your energy. You can deal with those fears as you move forward, but finding your balance is important because you're not going to be able to get to the root of what those fears are actually telling you until you find your balance. And the thing that sucks about intuition sometimes is that the time that you need it the most, when you're in fear, when you're in anger, when you're in pain, when you're in sadness, sometimes it's the hardest to tap into your intuition at those times. So the first step is going to be to sit with yourself, acknowledge the fear. You can do the little exercise that we did in the meditation earlier, which was imagine that fear as a little ball in front of you or a little sphere and just set it next to you. Like you're sitting on a park bench and you can just set it right next to you. It can stay there and you can pick it up again after you're done, but just let it sit there for a moment while you connect in and try to find that balance within yourself. Try to find that peace within yourself, that love within your heart, that beautiful soul that you are, and then start the work. So from there, what can you do? What can you do to act in love? And then another way to ask this question would be, what would you do if you were not in fear? So if this fear wasn't with you right now, so let's say it is this fear sitting next to you on this bench. So the fear is no longer with you, integrated into your body at this time. What would you do? Would you just go throughout your day? Would you just do all the things that you would normally do? Would you decide to call up a friend and maybe they're having a hard time? Would you maybe offer an ear, just a little space to listen? What would you do? So much of our energy is wasted on what I call future tripping because I have done it kind of my whole life. So that's like one of my favorite descriptors, I guess, of what it is. The future tripping of what is going to happen? How is this going to unfold? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to be taken care of? Am I going to be protected? Am I going to be loved? And that kind of speaks to that fear of the unknown that I was speaking about earlier, that unknown factor of where your life is going, what's going on outside of you, things that you cannot control. And the one thing I can tell you is that when you are tapping into your psychic nature, when you're tapping into those places where you know you're getting that intuitive hit and you're like, yep, I have a feeling this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. It happens to me more times than I can tell you that I get an intuitive hit of what's going to happen. And yeah, it happens, but it certainly doesn't happen the way that I think it's going to. Most of the time, it ends up happening in a totally different way that I could never have predicted. And that's by design. The universe doesn't want us to know all the answers because if we knew all the answers, what's the point of us being here? Right. So pay attention to those intuitive hits that you get because I know all of you are really intuitive. And sometimes we get these intuitive hits. Sometimes we don't know if they're fears or not. Sometimes we don't know what to do with them, even when we get them. Right. So, really pay attention to how things are coming in as well. This is the one thing that I do teach my my classes when I teach in Soul Discovery Workshop. I teach people about how to identify what is a thought and what is a an intuition. And especially if it is something that is let's say a warning of something that you're not meant to do. It will always, always, always be peaceful. It will always be sort of almost matter of fact. It will never, ever, ever be fearful. Like, don't do this. Oh my gosh, if you do this, this is going to happen. Like all of those things that you hear that are fear based, that's not how those warnings come in for me. And I just had a couple of situations like that recently where I was going on the wrong path and my guides were giving me very subtle nudges. They were giving me little signs here and there. It wasn't a big deal. It was something about planning a trip. And it was like they were giving me the signs and I was paying attention, but I wasn't necessarily doing anything about it. And then I got a little bit of a louder nudge. And every time I get that, it's very, very kind. And I feel no fear when I get the message. And so make sure that when you're getting messages, that you know where they're coming from. You know that they're coming from your guides, from your higher self, from your intuition, rather than coming from the fear. Because the fear can get so big. It can get so, so, so big. And then on top of it, when you have a whole bunch of people in fear and they're in fear about the exact same thing, oh, that gets even bigger. And that makes it even harder to actually get out of it. So if you need to disconnect from people who are in fear, please do it. If you need to disconnect from people who are speculating what's going to happen in the world, please do it. Please be aware of all practitioners. I don't care who you're listening to. I don't care how much you love them. If anybody is actively peddling fear, just maybe tune out for the time being. Okay. Because ultimately, you know as well as I do, when something is meant for you to happen in your life, that if you're aligned and if you're going on your path and you're on the right path, the guides are not going to give you a heads up like, hey, guess what? This is going to happen because you're on the right path. You're just going to go and you're going to experience your path. So just know in your heart that if you're going to go down the wrong path or if you're in a wrong place or if you are going to be in harm's way, that you will be notified. Trust me, you will be notified. You will be protected. You will not be able to, let's say, book that trip. Like I was trying to book a trip with some friends and it just kept on not happening. My computer wouldn't work. All kinds of things weren't happening. Okay, great. Cool. I guess we're not meant to book this trip. And then today we just had a conversation and realized that, okay, yeah, maybe we need to shift gears and maybe this trip isn't supposed to happen. So pay attention to those things within your life that are showing you, nope, nope, not that way. Go the other way. It's always a slight little nudge. It's not a, oh my gosh, don't do this or else. Again, fear energy. So it's not to say that, fear energy is bad. Fear energy is quite good. I mean, it's about, our instincts. It's about, our humanness. Fear is a good thing to kind of prevent us from doing things like, I don't know, putting our hand on a fire, that kind of thing. So it does serve a purpose. I'm not saying it doesn't, but unnecessary fear is the problem. So speculating, being in a place of saying, oh, I know this is going to happen and it's going to be awful. Okay, well, if you believe that we create our own reality, then that could potentially happen. Not to say that you're going to make something happen for the entire earth, but it could potentially happen where you're creating energy that is discordant, that is not aligned for where you're supposed to go. And it could just completely be in a space of, well, you're on your path, but then now you're in fear. Now you're attaching to this person's fear and that person's fear and those people's fear. And so now you're kind of stuck on your path and you're not moving forward because you're still stuck in that fear. Okay. So, this being said, this is all speaking from a high level spiritual place of being the observer, of saying, okay, I can see how all of these things are happening in the world. I can see how things are happening in my life, and I can certainly observe it and I can see why it's happening. Then there's the humanness of this all. And that's where we get tripped up, right? Myself included. I totally do as well. So, where we get caught up in the day to day, in all the vitriol and all of the division and all of the things that are happening. And we can know this in our spiritual selves. Ah, yeah, okay. Clearly, the way that things are moving in the world are the way that they need to move in order to have progress, in order to go through that dark night of the soul, in order to get to the other side, to be in that space of pure, unconditional love as a society. But we know that in order to get to those places, there are going to be some things that are unpleasant that we're going to have to experience before we get there. That's the high level aspect of it. The the human aspect is like, oh my God, the sky is falling. It's like a bunch of Chicken Littles running around going, oh my God, the sky is falling and this is really, really bad. Yeah, on the surface, it looks really, really bad. It looks like there's no way out. It looks like things are getting worse. It looks like things are not getting better. But how many times have you been in your journey where you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going backwards? I feel like I've regressed. I've gone back to my old ways. And how many times have you realized that that is temporary? It's always temporary. We're in a space right now where things are coming up to the surface to be cleared. And this has been going on for the last couple of decades. This is not something that's new. It just so happens that this is almost like um the crescendo, if you will, of everything that is culminating. So it is the final look at all of the distortion that is happening in the world, all of the power and control that is happening in the world that doesn't need to happen anymore. There are places on the earth that aren't going through this. There are places on the earth that are. There was a channeled message that I did in the last episode of season 1 of the Akashic Recordings. I believe it was episode 10. And this particular episode was about a woman who I had done a reading for, and her sole purpose was essentially to just blow things up, metaphorically. And so basically, she would incarnate as, somebody in a particular government or in a particular society, and she would just destroy it completely because it needed to be destroyed. And there are souls out there that are out there doing that, that they incarnate, that they destroy whatever, government, society, whatever thing needs to be destroyed because it no longer serves humanity. And so what needs to happen? Well, that needs to be destroyed so something new can blossom, so something new can come in. And so after that session, I did a channel about what it would look like, the Earth would look like in the next 200 years. And what came out was really surprising to me because, me as a human, I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I never would have guessed that that was the direction that we would be going in. But the channel basically said within the next 200 years, the governments will cease to exist the way that they currently exist. They would operate as small governing bodies for, infrastructure and things like that. But other than that, they would just not be around. The banking system would totally be completely different than what we know it to be today. Media would cease to exist. That would be the first thing to fall. There were all kinds of messages in there. So I don't remember the entire channel specifically because you know me, I don't remember the channels, but go back and pay attention to the sort of last half of that episode because that's where the channel is. And they talk about how it's not going to happen all at once. It can't. If it happens all at once, then it will be complete chaos. So it's going to happen one pillar at a time, one thing at a time. And will there be unpleasantness during those moments? Sure, of course there will. But you can know within your heart that you have the power to put up your own protection, to ask your angels and guides for protection every day, to make sure that you are where you need to be, that you are doing what you need to do, that you are in the energy that you need to be in. Because guess what? All of you are so powerful that if you are in your love energy, you can change and shift what is happening. But what is happening that is counter to that is if all of the light workers that are supposed to be doing their work right now are in fear, what does that do? It keeps the power structures in place. So I get the fear. I understand it. There was a time when I was younger that I went through some really big fear around some current events that were happening. When I grew up, there was the Cold War and the constant threat of, all of the things that they told us there was a threat of. And there was a lot of fear there within me as a child and as a teenager and young adult during those times. The thing is that it didn't serve me. It served no purpose in me whatsoever than to keep me in fear. So then we're going to talk about the one thing that people don't want to talk about, which is the ultimate fear. The ultimate fear we have is usually death. That is kind of our ultimate fear. So death and suffering of ourselves, death and suffering of our loved ones. So from a perspective from the Akashic records, if you can understand, know, and feel that we all signed up for our individual experiences, and it's not always the case, but a majority of the time we sign up for these experiences, and those are the experiences that we have. And so if you look at that from the Earth's perspective, she has also signed up for this experience. So if everybody has signed up for their individual experiences, if they are here for a particular reason, and if you do believe that your individual death is sort of written also in your soul contract, and that you will come back again, or maybe you won't. Some people won't come back. Some people will go to other planets and such. But whatever you decide to do, if you can get to a place of acceptance of that, if you get to a place of being able to really live in the space of peace regarding that, then a lot of that fear actually goes away. So it's not something that happens overnight. And I can tell you right now, I'm not 100% there either. I mean, when you have certain things going on in your life, or if you have a health issue or something like that, of course, your fight or flight is going to kick in. Your human nature is going to kick in. You're going to be in a place where you're like, okay, I don't want to leave this earth yet, right? That's our natural tendency. But if you know within your heart what you believe to be true, what you know in your soul, what you know in your soul contract and all of that, then you know the path that you're on is the right one. And that goes for the people that we may not like. That goes for the people that are in hatred. That goes for all of those people. They're on their path too. And as hard as that is for us to understand and see, that people who are sowing division, people who are sowing fear and hatred, are in their role for their path. Now, their path may be, let's say, not as far along on their journey, but we were there once. All of us were there once. All of us have been everything. All of us have been every experience for the most part. So, where can you find compassion? Because you cannot fight hatred, division, power struggles with the same. You can't even fight it. But what you can do is you can be in your own peace and your love. And that is the most powerful thing that you can do. All of you don't necessarily realize how powerful you are as an energy. The amount of change that you could create by just being in your balanced state, by being in that love every day with every person that you encounter. Do you know how powerful that is? If every single person on this planet did this, we wouldn't need extreme measures for transition. So let me see if there's anything else that they want to say or share about this before I open up for questions. So just give me a second. Okay. Um, they're saying there is just one thing. Okay. They're saying it's in regards to how you move forward as things get more challenging, or if you encounter more challenges, whether it's on a personal scale or a global scale. Hmm. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so what they're showing me is like a big like cloud of hate. Okay? So if you imagine a cloud of hate is a big red angry cloud. And if you are in hate or fear or any of the lower energies, you're going to be sucked into that cloud, and you're going to be in that cloud. If you are in love, if you are in balance, if you are in forgiveness and peace and all of those higher vibration energies, it's like oil and water. So you might come near the hatred and the fear, but your water is going to go around it. It's not going to touch you because it can't touch you. Okay? So if you imagine that as a visual, that like when you get into those lower energies, it sucks you in to that same energy. So yes, you can be affected by it. But if you're able to stay out of that energy, then it will circumvent you. Okay. That's a good analogy. Um, okay. So I do want to make another comment about that specifically, though, because I don't want to say that you have to spiritually bypass your emotions. It's not about that. This is about if you're feeling genuine fear, then yeah, address it, try to work through it. If you're feeling fear because you just watched, I don't know, 3 hours of news, okay, you need to stop. Like you need to stop watching it. Um, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be informed. There's one thing about being informed. I do keep myself informed every so often, but I dip in and I dip out. And most of the time when I do, I make sure that I'm just reading articles as opposed to watching anything on TV, YouTube, anything like that. So if I read, I don't know, like a French newspaper or something like that, I'll skim the articles if there's anything that like is, jumping out at me that I, let's say, need to be aware of. Then I'll read it. If not, I don't bother. And some people might look at that as sticking your head in the sand, but it's not. It is preserving your energy because you are much more useful and much more powerful if your energy is clear and in high vibration. Okay? So then the last piece before I open it up to questions is about, what can you do? If you are wanting to help, let's say, your fellow community, and let's say there's a lot of hatred surrounding a particular group of people, and you want to do something about it and you want to help, try to find constructive ways to help. Maybe if it feels aligned for you, join some human rights organizations, find some places where you can be of service, find some places where you can be of help. Being in a place where you are throwing shade or hatred at the people that are throwing the hatred at the people that you love, still not the right energy. So again, you can't fight hate with hate. It's impossible. You just get sucked into that bubble of hate and then you're in that same boat. So find constructive ways. If you have the energy, this is only if you have the energy to help in that way. If you don't, if you feel depleted, do not deplete yourself further by feeling like you have to step in and save the world. Do what you can right now. Do what you feel guided to, but pay attention to your own self care. Pay attention to your daily practice. Pay attention to you asking your guides for help every day. Pay attention to what you need, your quiet time, your family time. It's going to be important. And it always has been important, but it's always more important when you're going through times of challenge. Okay. I think that's it for now. Okay, so I'm gonna open it up for any sort of questions that you have about everything that I just I guess talked at you for 45 minutes about. So if you have a question, just do the little hand raisy thing. Wow, no questions. That's shocking. Yay. Well, that's great. Okay, cool. So, if nobody has any questions, then what I would like to do is I would like to just sort of lead us through a meditation to help balance the energies where you feel the energies need to be balanced. So, whether it's your home country, whether it is your home, whether it is just you, doesn't matter. Big or small, doesn't matter. We're just going to go into a space where we can send love, healing, and ask for the best possible outcome for your life, for the lives of your loved ones, for, for your life path, whatever it is that you want to ask for. Okay. All right. So I want you to close your eyes again and take a deep breath. And I would like you to imagine that you're in that beautiful sacred space one more time. And imagine that within this sacred space, that you have this beautiful channel of energy coming from the universe, from the divine. And it's coming in through your crown chakra. And imagine that light coming out from your heart space, almost like you are a conduit for this beautiful divine energy. And imagine that light coming out of your heart space like a Care Bear. I love that analogy. It's a great analogy. And imagine that light, that love, that pure divine source energy is reaching to a place that you would like it to reach. It could be one person, it could be a whole group of people, it could be an entire country. Wrapping that person, people, places in divine source love. Setting the intention that this love can permeate every cell of every body, every blade of grass, every part of this earth, every drop of water, purifying and cleansing, bringing pure, unconditional love. Acceptance, pure, unconditional love, even for the shadow. For the shadow cannot integrate without love. Every part of fear and lower energies is rooted in lack of love. So, where are those places within yourself, within your loved ones, within your environment that you can see that there is lack of love? And where can you put that love? Just allow it to go there. And it is not about forcing that love on the shadow. It is about simply making it available, knowing that it is there, that love, acceptance, unity is all there and always available. Sometimes all it takes is for a slight shift, for that realization to happen. Shifts in perspective happen all the time. And you never know when your particular energy can make all the difference in the world. So make sure that when you do this, you are channeling that divine source energy through you and not using your own personal energy as to not deplete your own personal energy. Seek out the place within your heart that you feel that warmth, that unconditional love. And imagine that it is getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it is filling the entire room that you are in. And then as it gets bigger and bigger, maybe it's encapsulating the entire building you are in. And then imagine that light encapsulating your entire city. And maybe your entire country. And then imagine your light, that channeled light expanding throughout the entire world. Okay, and take one more deep breath. So inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. So inhale and exhale. Okay. So if anyone wants to share how they feel, how that made them feel, if they're feeling any better, feeling a little bit less topsy-turvy, feel free to share. Otherwise, it's been wonderful to connect with all of you. Thank you, Anne. Thanks for joining. And thank you, all of you, for joining today as well. I will put this back up on YouTube once it is complete. And so if you would like to listen to this again, it will be available to all of you. And I'm wishing you a wonderful, wonderful week. And of course, if you need individual help, I am here. So if you need to book a session, I am here. My schedule is a little nutty at the moment, but and that mainly has to do with the launch of Soul Discovery Workshop, which is the course that I'm doing. Registration ends tomorrow, so I will be working on that for the next few weeks. But I believe my schedule opens up sometime mid-December if you need any sort of support. Okay, I'm sending all of you so much love, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.